Today's daf is daf nun ches, and we'll start with Amar of Amram. Ha milsa, this halacha, in other words, yesh chuppah lipsulos, or according to one the Amar, ein chuppah lipsulos, we said was a machlok between Rav and Shmuel, and we understood on daf nun zayin amid beis that Shmuel holds ein chuppah lipsulos, Rav holds yesh chuppah lipsulos, Amar lon Rav Sheshes, Baharinu li'ainin mimasnisin. We have it as a tradition from Rav Sheshes, and he shed a new light and brought proof to his halacha, to his claim from a Mishnah in Sota. What was the halacha that he said? Yesh chuppah lipsulos. In other words, Rav Sheshes was accepting the shita of Rav. And v'tanatun, and he brought a raya from a Mishnah in Sota Daf Yud Ches, where a Sota had kinui and then stira, and the Torah says that her husband in such a case brings her to the Kohen, and they give her mayim morim to drink, and they impose upon her a shvua that she did not have this extramarital relationship, and she did not have znus as a married woman. And then after the Kohen is machpiyah, she responds, Amen, Amen. And the Mishnah says, what's the double language? Amen, Amen. V'yomra isha Amen, Amen. To teach us that on the one hand, she takes a shvur shalos hasisi arusa v'nesua, and she also takes a shvur shalo Satisi Shomeres Yavam. And then Uknusa. And even after I was a Knusa. So as far as a regular marriage is concerned, we have Arusa and Nesu. As far as a Yibum situation in the Shomeres Yavam, we have, excuse me, that during that period of time before Yibum, she wasn't Sota, and after the Yavam was Machnesar, and he already was Mekayim Mitzvah of Yibum, and he had Be'ilah, and then after that, the Baal was Mashka, her, Umashpia, Osa Shalo Nistera, whether or not she was a Shemeres Yavan, or after Knisa Sayavam. Now, at this point, the Gemara assumes that what the Mishnah has in mind is every single scenario unto itself. And the Arusa takes a shvua, the Nesua takes a shvua. Hi Arusa, Hechi Dami. What's the case of an Arusa who takes a shvua? If the husband gave her kinui during this period of Erison, and she violated that kinui, and she had stira, and during this period of time of Erison, the Baal is mashka her, that's impossible. Because Arusa Bas Mishtiyahi, the Gemara asks a rhetorical question: do we take an Arusa and give her the drink of the Mayim Morim? Or tonight we have a Mishnah that Arusa, if she had kinui, and then she had stira, v'shomeres yavam, if there was kinui from the yavam and she was soser, stira, lo shosos v'lo notlos ksuba. The pasuk says in Parshas Naso, Tachas Ishech, and an Arusa and a Shomeres Yavam are not considered Ishech. And they caused the Isra al-Baila, and therefore they are mafsid ksuba, because the Chiv ksuba, when the Baal divorces us, because he divorced her on his own will, but not when he was forced to divorce her because she did what she did. So we see clearly that there's no such thing as Hashkas Sota if she's an Arusa. as derived from Tachas Ishech. Ella, and then when we get back to the Mishnah says Arusa, it doesn't mean that the Shvua and the Hashka took place when she was in Arusa, but rather the Kanilak Shi Arusa, there was Kinui, and he said to her, Altistri and Ploni while she was in Arusa, Vistatra, and she violated that Kinui with Stira, the Kamashkil La, Kishahi Nesua, but only after the Nesuin, he was Mashkar. And in this case, there's no miut from the Pasuk Tachas Ishech, because at the time that the Hashka takes place and she drinks a Meimarav, she's already Ishech, she's Nesua, she's Tachta. So the Gemara asks, Mi Bodki Le Maya, would the Mayim, the Meimarim, have the power to investigate whether she was guilty or not? But Tanya, we learned in the Brisa, it says in the Torah, V'nika ha'ish me'avon, again in Parashas Naso, V'ha'isha hi tisas avona, and we darshan it, Dafka bizman she'ha'ish menuka me'avon, then hamayim bodkim es ha'isha, but im ein ha'ish menuka me'avon, ein hamayim bodkim es ha'isha. So the power of the Meimarim is contingent on the fact that he, the Baal, is guiltless. He's Menuka Mi'avon. Now, if we're talking about a case where he married her after Stira, notice he took her into the chuppah for Nesuin after she was Soser, and the Stira took place while she was in Arusa, then his relationship with her was a bias havera, because the Torah says v'nitma, and therefore he violates a lav doraisa if he has a relationship with her. And in that case, at the time of the Ashka Sota, meaning after Nesu, and he's already had Be'ilu with her, he's violated a lav, he's not Menuka B'Yavon. How can he be Mashka her? The Mayim will not be able to investigate her because he's not Menuka B'Yavon. Ella, says the Gemara, we have to assume the Kanile Kisha Arusa. The Kinui took place, Altistri and Ploni, when she was in Arusa Vestatra, and she violated that Kinui with Stira. Then what happened later? He took her into the chuppah, made her into a netzua, but there was no be'ila. So once he took her to the chuppah, it's considered achas ishech. On the other hand, he's menuka mi'avon because he did not implement bia. And in this case, the Mishnah establishes that he's mashka osa because the Mayim can check her out. They can investigate her. They're effective. And the Gemara says, from the fact that we interpreted the Mishnah in a way that he took her into the chuppah without be'ilah, and she's considered in the suah, so now he can be mashka her, is you see that the chuppah is effective even though we're dealing with psulos, meaning there's an isur bia of tumah as a result of the stira. Omar Rava v'tizvara. V'tizvara is usually the word used in the Talmud to throw the ball into the court of the makshin and show how the makshin himself is somehow involved in a real complex problem. Dome Tarzata is this Mishnah what we call a Mishnah mit tu retzes. In other words, you've made some sort of logical explanation and you've maintained the integrity of this Mishnah. He came up from the south. He came with a brisa that says, and the brisa is going to interpret the pasuk v'ad kisatis tachas ishech v'chinit meis v'yitain ish bach es shchavto v'baladei ishech. We dash in the pasuk misha kod mashchiva shvius ba'al boel When are the mayim capable of being bodek? The efficacy of the mayim is contingent upon the fact that first she had a relationship with her husband and consummated that marriage. And then only after that, she had a relationship with the Boel. But if first, we switch around the order, she had a shchiva with the Boel, and she has not yet had a shchiva with the Baal, then Eina Mayim Bodkin. The waters do not have the power to be Bodika. Now, this woman entered into the chuppah, according to your interpretation, without Be'ilah. So that would mean that the Shchivas HaBoel came before the Shchivas HaBaal, and the Mayim can't be Bodkin. So how could we possibly interpret the Mishnah in that light, according to that interpretation? We could explain this Mishnah Kigon in a case of Ba'aleha Arusa Bebeis Aviyah. He had a relationship of znus with his Arusa while she was still living in the house of her father. And then he gave a kini and stira. Then Nichnasa L'chupav Lo Nivala. So again, he had already a bila with her, Bebeis Aviyah. Then there was kini and stira. Then he took her into the chuppah without bi'ila, and he could be mashka her, and that's because she's already nesua, so it's already takasiche, because he took her into the chuppah. And even though you would say it's kadma shchivas haboel, no, it's kadma shchivas habal, because he was balek she bebeis aviyah. So the mind therefore effectively can be bodika. So the Gemara raises the following objection. The Brisa speaks not only about Arusa, but also about Shomeres Yevamot. And the Kavasa, there should be a certain affinity between these two cases of Arusa and Shomeres Yevamot. L'gabi Shomeres Yevamot Shebole Yevamot Bebeis Chamiyah. So the parallel interpretation of the scenario of Shomeres Yevamot, parallel to that of Arusa, would be that the Yavam had a relationship of znus, the Beis Chamiyah, right, in the father-in-law's house, meaning as an almana. Then he gave a kini and stira, and then he was machnis al lechupav lo nivala. And now when he comes to the mashka her, she's already in a suah because he took her into the chuppah. And that makes it tachas ishech. So what's the kasha? So the Gemara asks, and here you'll see it on Nunches Amud Beis, if that be the case, it's Shomeres Yevamot Karisle. How could the language of the Brisa, how do you bear that out? The Brisa speaks about a Shomeres Yevamot. Right? It says, Arusa v'Shomeres Yevamot lo shosos. Now, if he already had a relationship with her, as we interpreted, Bebeis Aviyah, he was koneha ve'ishto ma'al yahi. T'yomer Rav kana l'kol. Rav said that a bal yevimto, even if it was l'shem znus, or as a bia shogi, he thought it was his wife, he was kona l'chol dini ishas according to Rav. And the way you're interpreting the case of bal lev bebeis chamiyah, why does the Tana use the term Shomeres Yavam